going to go with our extinction phase. And a fellow had some nasty comments to make. So let me go with this first. Okay.
Uh-oh.
See if you can read that.
You keep peddling politics, Bill, despite being a failed communist.
Whoa.
You never understood how the world works. That's why you keep peddling politics instead of understanding the reality of what is actually going on in the world and what is driving it behind the scenes. So please do us all a favor and stop your BS opinions on how the world works, whether we went to the moon or not, whether viruses exist or not, and their electron micrograph interpretations. Whether viruses exist?
Yeah. So.
That's some next level conspiracy theory.
Well, yeah. The first thing I want to mention on that, we don't do politics, and here's a rundown of that. Okay, what we try to do here is extinction, and politics only in relation to extinction.
Well, you touch on politics a lot.
Yeah, but it's not really politics because I don't give recommendations on who to vote for.
Well, it's not religion, but you do go.
It is a religion,
but you do go into the political realm. What I mean is, you don't give recommendations, but you do give your 2 cents on things that are happening in Russia or some.
In relation to, in other words, I try to put it as much as possible in the context of extinction. How does that, get us closer to extinction or farther away from extinction? That's the only real context in which I raise these issues. Here's a rundown. Politics, opinions, and recommendations. Essentially, I don't do that. I don't tell you who to vote for.
Yeah, you don't do that.
And what is good, what is bad. I don't. A long time ago, I left that behind. Okay, so I don't do politics in that sense. I think politics is what you see there, religion. Okay, and I look at the news only in relation to extinction. In other words,
but you've also done it without relation to extinction.
Well, in general,
like just for fun, you'll go in 10 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, but in general, the focus is extinction. That's the context in which I try to put it. Okay, but this fellow apparently, has this idea that everything is a hoax. A lot of flat earthers are like that. They think everything's a hoax, and so they don't believe in anything. And I'm not saying that there are not false flags out there. There are. Okay, there's a lot of misinformation given by the governments themselves. Not one, but all of them. Okay, they have to do politics, so they have to keep the flocks in line. So there's a lot of that going on. So I don't deny that. But not everything is a hoax. Going to the moon, this guy mentioned viruses and all this other stuff. So what I want to say here is that this fellow just criticized me. He said, Bill, you don't know how the world works. Fine. Okay, great. I tell you how I think the world works. I get my own conclusions. And of course, I could be wrong, right? But the question is, he didn't tell us what he believes. He's saying, I don't understand how the world works, implying that he does. And the question is, if he does, please tell us how you do or think the world
Enlighten
works.
us.
Yeah, or is it that you're afraid to be laughed at? The guy might go in there and say, well, the world is flat, and everybody would laugh at him. So he says, I'm not going to tell you how the world is, how it works. I'm just going to say that you're wrong.
I mean, it's too late. I'm already laughing at him. The fact that he thinks viruses don't exist.
Well, I don't know. I mean, he mentioned that as an example. He mentioned...
That's a really specific example. You only say that example if you think viruses don't exist.
Well, yeah, and there's a lot of people that don't believe in that viruses and bacteria don't exist. Yeah, they don't accept that. They have a different version. They say, you get sick perhaps because you're not following the natural way of living, etc.
Well, then here's a question. Because we're talking about viruses, we can't see them. Yeah. We're talking about flat Earth, we can't see that. We're talking about armies and politics, things that are outside of our periphery. Is everything that is outside of things we can see just doomed to become misinterpreted by groups of people?
Yeah, but then you have situations like you say we can't see flat Earth. Okay, we have sent probes. Yeah. No, but listen, we sent probes out there that have taken pictures of the Earth from afar. It shows a roundish Earth, okay, a spherical object out there. No,
roundish is that
roundish in this way.
Flat.
But the issue is, and these people simply deny that we went into space. So they constantly outflank you. Mm-hmm. They say, well, we haven't gone out into space. A lot of people out there don't even believe there are satellites.
But that's what I mean.
and so or that we have never sent satellite. I heard some people say that our communication out there, the your
Internet and everything.
internet, all this stuff is done through wires, through
Yeah.
here on Earth. So they outflank you constantly, and okay, they can take it as far as they want. They say everything's a hoax. The government is making you believe that the Earth is round, and those pictures taken from afar was never taken. They were made in Hollywood or who knows where. So I mean, you can take it as far as you want. All I can tell you is my assumptions, my set of assumptions, and I'm telling you how I think the world works or is in relation to extinction. This fellow, he wants to debate. I mean, I don't even know why he wastes his time writing if he's not going to say, look, this is the way the world works. Oh, okay, so now we all know what's going through his mind.
He's not adding anything to
Yeah,
the
he's
conversation.
just,
well, then why do you even address it?
But that's my point. My point, if you're going to talk about something, at least, put something in there on why you think the way you think, and then we can, sink our teeth into it. But by just throwing something out there and then hiding yourself, that's cowards.
It's boring.
Person.
It's boring because he doesn't add anything.
Yeah, he hasn't added anything to the.
That and silence are the same.
Okay, so what do? We do extinction here, and these are the two things, that I always recommend: Extinction 101 before Extinction 102. Everybody's an expert on human extinction, whether it's going to happen or not, and how it's going to happen. But nobody seems to be an expert on Extinction 101, which is, how do mass extinctions, or background extinctions for that matter, how do they happen? See, if you cannot rationalize a mass extinction, you have nothing to say yet about human extinction because you know nothing about an extinction. You haven't shown us that you're proficient in extinction. And what are the issues with Extinction 101, specifically mass extinction? Well, first you got to do Extinction 101 before 102, which is the one at the bottom, right? Do you have a mechanism of extinction, how extinction happens?
Asteroid every time.
Yeah, and I put it, you can't use an ad hoc mechanism, like saying, well, for this species, this is how it happened. For this other one, this other thing happened. This other one, yet another one. This one here was a comet. Here was a volcano.
You could, but,
yeah,
it's messy. Yeah.
Yeah, it gets into because Occam's rule.
Well, some people would argue that it's a matter of time before some disaster wipes out a species, so it could be a different thing every time.
Yeah, that's one issue, but what we're saying is simultaneously, like if a comet hit the Earth, right? For example, in the days of the dinosaurs. Okay, how did the dinosaurs on the other side of the planet die? Well, they say, well, those died because they were, there were these waves that, buried them, underneath the water. Or maybe there was all this acid rain falling down on them, or there was this cloud that covered the planet. So they have one mechanism for different species, right? And how do the ones under the sea die? Well, the acidity of the waters killed them. And why didn't it kill the others? Well, it killed these because they had less tolerance. And so they go through all these ad hoc mechanism, one for each species in one extinction. That's a no-no. That means you don't have a slightest clue of how extinction happens.
It's patchwork.
And so that's what I'm referring to there.
Okay.
Now, the other issue here is you have to explain selectivity. How does Mother Nature, select one? Because, the mammals survived. And some plants survived, specifically the angiosperms, right? What died primarily or went away almost entirely were the conifers, right? And so certain plants died, certain ones survived, certain animals died, certain ones survived. The question is, how do you explain that? That's selectivity, okay? And specifically, chronological selectivity, because, what died were the old species. The dinosaurs and the conifers were much older than the mammals and the angiosperms.
As a species, you mean?
Yeah, and then as an order, right, as a major order, category. And then before that, we had the same situation, for example, in the Permian and also in the Triassic, where the older plants, the older animals were the ones that died, and the new ones were the ones who continued. You have to explain that.
So you're saying there are certain patterns that keep repeating, like clues.
Yeah. That
people have to, I guess, account for in whatever explanation they come up with.
And all I'm saying, that's where I'm going to come in with my questions. I'm going to come in and say, well, explain this, explain that.
You're saying this wasn't a coincidence that it happened every time as such. So this must be linked to the explanation of
what I call the cookie cutter. We apply the same cookie cutter in different ages. Something is repeating itself. And we have to look at those that pattern, that cookie cutter, and figure out what is happening every time we have a mass extinction. In other words, at least that's where I'm going to ask the questions. So at least you know where I'm coming from because I'm open on this. I'm telling you where I'm going to hit you.
People don't talk about extinctions much.
No, because they don't know. They don't do any research on extinction. They're all into business. They're into investing
It's a really
money
interesting
and what's
topic.
happening today.
It's an interesting topic, but as far as I know, the common person on the street thinks there was just one extinction, the dinosaurs. Yeah, I think that's the common knowledge is there was only one extinction, the dinosaurs. Asteroid hit them, or comet, or whatever. Some rock from the sky killed them all, and here we are. Ta-da!
Yeah, that's.
I think that's why it's not really looked into
know,
because the knowledge out there is there was only one, so there's nothing to explain.
So
the one that happened was an asteroid.
So people know nothing about the Triassic, the Jurassic, the Permian, the Ordovician,
the people
Silurian.
who study that maybe, but the
Yeah, but I
person,
mean,
asteroid.
but that's what I'm saying. People who talk about human extinction first have to know something about or demonstrate proficiency in extinction. What do you know about past extinction? Can you answer those? If you can, how do you expect that you are an expert in human extinction?
Well, you don't have to be an expert, just as long as you understand.
Yeah, but I mean,
you won't be able to understand it if you don't understand extinctions in general.
And the other issue again is, yeah, you want to show that you know something about extinction so that you can extrapolate whatever mechanism you come up with to man and say, this is why man's going to die. It's going to die the same way as the dinosaurs or the Permian, synapsids or whatever.
But with extra steps. It's got some extra shit with humans because we got economy and all that.
Okay, and then you can move on to extinction. Then you also have to explain, how the animals, air, land, and sea died at the same time, more or less.
But not all. It's the selectivity. It's like certain... I'm just going to call them food chains.
Yeah, that's what they are.
Disappeared.
But then you have here Extinction 102. Now you've finished with Extinction 101. You show your proficiency. You know you can explain that to some degree. Okay, then now we can continue, right? And so we move on to humans. Say, will humans become extinct? That's one question you want to answer. Some people say humans won't become extinct. We'll go to the stars and then expand throughout the universe. If anything, you can say, they're going to die, I guess, with a big crunch. We'll live all the way to those days. And then so the question is, if yes, when? And by when, I don't mean a specific date. I'm saying, are we going to die in 10 years, in 100 years, in 1,000 years, in 1,000,000 years? And there's a difference. I mean, if it's in 1,000,000 years, we don't have to worry too much. But if it's going to happen in the next 10 years, I think we're all concerned, right? So that kind of thing, put us more or less in the ballpark of when you think humans are going to go extinct.
I mean, I think the finitude of human history, that's a really rare belief. Most people just believe shit goes on, or they don't think about it. But it's weird to think about the fact that human history is linear and then it ends. The fact that things don't repeat. It's not that history repeats. Even there, it's not linear. For example, population is not linear. Population has no, that's not what I mean.
No. But I'm just going on the trends. The fact that there are changes through times means that history doesn't really repeat itself.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Okay, in other words, you have this long curve where we have very little population growth, and then in the last 19th century, especially, population exploded, especially in the advanced nations. Who had the children? Not the poor people. The rich people had to, and people can't understand that today because they say, no, poor people have children. No, in the 19th century, it was the rich who had children. It was the advanced nations where population exploded. Not in Africa, not in Asia, in the advanced nations, United States, Europe, those were the ones that expanded rapidly. And
why do China and India have the biggest populations?
Today, because they acquired that population later on. In other words, they did have quite a bit of population, but their population was growing very slowly relative to the Western world. It was growing slowly in the 19th century. It took off in the 20th century. Okay, so we need to understand the dynamics of population, and people have these stereotypes that it's poor people who have children. Absolutely not. It's people who are in the country that have children. People in the cities don't have children, whether poor or rich.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Okay, so we have to focus these things in the right way, or put them in the right context, or at least if you want to debate them, no problem. But show your hand. And then here we have, you have to come up with a guaranteed mechanism of extinction for man. You cannot say, for example,
guaranteed?
Well, here, you can say, well, we're going to nuke each other. Okay, you could say that,
You're
right?
saying that's not a matter of time.
No, it's a question of we might not nuke
I
ourselves.
see what you mean.
What if we don't nuke ourselves? Then does that mean we live forever? In other words, nuking is not a
You're saying
guaranteed mechanism.
the mechanism should be something like, I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but it should be like akin to starvation, because if you look at a dog and you say, if you don't feed that dog, he will eventually die.
Yeah, that's a guaranteed
That's a
mechanism.
guaranteed mechanism.
But if you say a comet is going to kill us, well, what if the comet doesn't come?
Yeah.
Does that mean we're not
You
guaranteed?
can't count on it.
Yeah, in other words, those are not valid mechanisms to say humans are going to die because of comet or because of nukes.
Yeah.
Okay, because those may not happen. That means you haven't guaranteed the extinction
You're
of
saying
man.
it should be something. It has to be something
It's
deterministic.
guaranteed. And here you have some valid ones, for example, just as examples, right? Runaway greenhouse. You can say in 100 million years or 200 million years,
Eventually,
we might have greenhouses, because that is a process that might likely be developed through the sun, right? Getting hotter, etc. And so people might say, look, that's when we're going to die in 200 million years. So at least you have a theory that explains why humans are going to die in 200 million years if we don't get off the planet. The other one is the sun nova. That might happen in 5 billion years. And that might be your theory. You might say, look, we won't die until 5 billion years later. Why? Because there's going to be a supernova. And so now you have a theory that is almost guaranteed, because if the sun blows up, I think we're all gone, right? So in that sense, that is a guaranteed or a more believable mechanism. But to say that we're going to nuke each other, we might not. To say that a comet is going to hit us or there's going to be a supernova nearby, well, all that might not happen. So you haven't guaranteed the extinction of the human race. So these are the questions that I'm going to be asking for people who claim that they know about extinction.
I mean, it's fun to think about, just armchair.
Here, let me show you some excuses or what people believe out there are going to cause the extinction of man. And none of these are guaranteed, okay? And you can see them here. Climate change, number one. Why? Because it's in everybody's mind. That's the only reason.
Now, is it guaranteed?
Well, the question is, can you tell me how climate is going to kill us? What is the mechanism? In other words, unless you can justify how climate change is going to, we can't do anything about it. Like live underwater or go on boats or.
I thought the theory was the greenhouse gas thing.
Well,
the fact that the sun keeps getting more.
Yeah, and we might even in that case create some chemical that counteracts that in the air by that.
That's not deterministic, but deterministic is climate change.
Yeah, to a certain degree, I guess. But again, you can say climate change, but climate change is just a label. We need to find out, what the mechanism of extinction is related to climate change. How does climate change create a mechanism that extinguishes the human race? That's the question. Okay, that's what you got to reason for us.
Pretty sure people have done that, huh?
Well, good. I'd like to hear it.
Isn't that just the standard climate change theory?
Well, no, because people just say climate change, everything is melting and the animals are dying.
I thought the ice caps
the
were
polar bears
melt.
have little ice in which to stand. That doesn't tell me how humans became extinct. Tell me how climate change does kill us. Is it through the food chain? Is it because we're going to have no water? Everything's going to heat up? What is the mechanism that you propose? There are different. Climate change can affect many things.
Yeah.
And we can also say, hey, there's going to be just like in the past, we went through heating cycles. We could go back to a cooling cycle.
Either one of us could wipe us off.
Yeah, but my point is maybe it doesn't wipe us off, because as soon as it gets too hot, maybe the climate changes back to cold again. That's my point. So I don't know if it's guaranteed. Tell me the mechanism. Asteroid may not happen. Virus.
That one, I don't know.
Virus, disease. I don't know about that.
Probably not.
Good old-fashioned war. Again, war hasn't killed anybody, all of humanity. It has killed a lot of people. It's always a percentage. Same with viruses, by the way. It never kills all of a species. It only kills certain percentage of the of the species. And then AI revolt.
That one maybe. That one might be deterministic.
Well,
because you could debate. You could argue that eventually we'll develop AIs that are just so good that we become obsolete and then they just kill us off.
So you think we're going to do that? We're going to allow the AIs to be outside of our control?
Yeah, it's a possibility.
I don't think so. I don't think we'll ever get there. But yeah, justify it, and that's fine. I have no problem. I'm just saying you need to justify. That's all I'm saying. You have to come up with a mechanism. Say this is the mechanism how we're going to die. Then it's okay.
Or we just don't. We just don't die.
Well, yeah, that's also, some
That's
people
also
don't
possible.
believe that.
That one's hard to explain though.
Okay, this is what we propose, mass extinction. We're saying that the ecological pyramid is going to overturn. And background extinction was the one on the bottom, says how one species disappears, and that is when its population pyramid overturns. What does population pyramid overturn involve? It involves two things. It involves aging of the population, right? The pyramid overturns, right? And the loss of genetic diversity. Those two things are symptoms that a species is old. We are an old species now, okay? We've only been around maybe 200, 300,000 years, but we are older than the dinosaurs are because our population pyramid has overturned. We have no chance of overturning it back again. It's overturned since 1963 on a consistent basis. You know, we have less and less, we're producing less and less people proportionally year by after year. And there's nothing we can do to overturn that because we're moving from the country to the city, and that's what creates that problem primarily. But we're going to die, not because of that, we're going to die because of what I showed on the top, the overturning of the ecological pyramid. What's going to happen
Too many
according
predators.
to, no.
We're gonna have too many lions out there.
No, we are the lions.
Watch out for the lions, guys. They're gonna kill us all.
Yeah, no, what's going to happen is our economics, you know, it's an economic problem. Our economics is going to run out. We have no way of growing forever, economically speaking. And at some point, we're going to reach a plateau, and from there, it's going to overturn very quickly. And what's going to happen is suddenly more and more people are out of work. You won't be able to create money from the magic wand as we do today, where, you know, governments just create money and say, okay, we solved the problem, and let the other administration worry about how they're going to deal with that, and everybody does the same thing. And at some point, you know, the buck stops here. At some point, you will not. Governments will not be able to do that anymore. They will not be able just to create money out of nothing because all you're doing is devaluating the coin, and the worker will not be able to make it till the end of the month, and companies are not going to be able to sell to those people who have no disposable income, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a chain that's all connected, and the whole system collapses. When it collapses, it doesn't collapse slowly, it collapses vertically, downwards. Okay?
Well, especially because we try everything we can until it collapses.
Right.
And
We're
then
postponing.
and usually those things are good in the short term, bad in the long term, where we're taking from the future kind of thing.
And all I'm saying is that's the mechanism in general that I propose. We can go into a lot of detail, but not today. Okay. Okay. So what is related to some of this? We have big China. China's big on the news lately. I mean, for months now. And I think from here to the end of time, we're going to hear a lot about China. So if you hear me talking about China, you know why. Okay. And here's a couple headlines out there. The Telegraph in England says China must come clean on biggest military buildup in peacetime, warns James Cleverly, who is the foreign secretary. Okay, so what's the issue there? China is building its army and its navy, and this fellow complains. He said, "Why are you doing that in peacetime?" Well, the Chinese would probably answer because the United States are putting this fence around us. You know, it's like they used to ask the Northerners during the Civil War would ask the Southerners, say, "Why are you fighting?" And the guy would say, because, you know, they were maybe in South Carolina or maybe in Tennessee or something. Says, "Because you're here. That's why we're fighting." In other words, they weren't fighting for the blacks, for freedom for the blacks. They were fighting because someone had invaded their state, which was their country, you know, the way they saw it. So you're here, that's why I'm fighting, because you're here. And that's more or less what the Chinese would answer here and say, look, we're fighting because you're here. You know, if the United States did not have all these ships out there in the Pacific, you know, China probably would not have to build up, but it builds up because the United States is there. That's one issue. The United States is there because it fears that China is growing. You know, there's a mistrust on both sides. Say, oh, you guys are creating these islands, these where you're putting your military in the middle of the ocean. You're saying that this waterway belongs to you, and that's why we're here to make sure that, you know, international traffic goes smoothly. And so they send the military ships out there, you know, the naval ships. And so the other side says, oh, you sent your naval ships, so we're going to build more naval ships. And you have this arms buildup, okay, this arms race. So I think that's the answer to that. The other note here from Bloomberg, U.S. companies in China grow more pessimistic about bilateral ties. Yeah, what's happening is, you know, a lot of businesses are in China, and they want to make money. And right now, the United States, especially, is putting a stop to a lot of technology transfer to China, especially in the world of chips, where I used to work, semiconductors, integrated circuits. They don't want China to get the advanced chips. And because of that, they're stopping a lot of technology transfer to companies, Western companies, really, in China. And because of that, China says, "Hey, you're interrupting international trade," and because of that, we're going to take, countermeasures. And so there's again this arms race in the business world as well. So we have two world arms races. And what's happening here, and here's the map. Okay, we're having a split world. We have on the one hand Russia and China, who see convenience in being together today. Tomorrow they might be enemies again, like they were when they were both communists, Soviet Union and China, right? They were enemies at the time. Now they're friends, and it's just friendships of convenience. But yeah, we have this world more or less divided in two parts. Okay, and so the question is whether this is going to affect every single one of us, whether it's going to affect the global economy, which is what I'm saying is going to eventually collapse and lead to the extinction of man. Okay, so these are things that I at least consider when I'm looking at politics. Okay, so these are things that are running through my head. How does this affect us? Meaning the extinction of man. How close does this bring us to the extinction of man? Is there a better way, a more peaceful way to extend or postpone the extinction of man? Or is this bringing us closer to the extinction of man?
It might be an inevitability, like you said. It's not that it's bringing it closer; it's that this is a inevitable consequence of this linear
of competition.
Well, not competition, but the whole process of the extinction of man. This is just one of the milestones that are inevitable in the road. It's not that we're doing anything to make it come closer. It's that there are certain things that are just gonna happen on the way there.
Yeah, but the question is there something we could do? Our politicians, our economists, whoever out there, is there something anyone can do out there that would help us postpone extinction? Like if we could look at the future and say, "Oh, we should have done this in the past." If we did it today, would we live longer? Would we postpone the day of extinction, the day of reckoning?
Well, what's one or two things you would recommend? Like, what do you think humanity could do to postpone extinction?
Well, let me put something in there. I think Mother Nature wants competition.
Yeah.
Okay? Mother Nature has put competition everywhere. You see it in the animal world, you see it among humans. There's competition. And maybe the solution to counteract what Mother Nature instilled in us or put in there would be to have monopoly. Like, we all agree we're all friends, right? And some people actually believe that the Chinese, the Americans, the rulers, right? We're talking about Xi Jinping and Putin and Biden, that in secret, behind the scenes, they're all really friends, and they all actually are colluding. Okay, they're all in agreement, but they tell their people, "Oh, the Americans, oh, the Chinese, oh, the Russians," so that people say, "Oh yeah, we got to fight them," etc.,
etc. Keep the illusion of competition.
Yeah, keep the illusion when there's really no competition at the high level. Some people actually believe that. I don't make that assumption. I think there is really competition. Okay, and I think it's inevitable. And competition, in this sense, leads to destruction. Because at the end, when there's only two empires, it's not like one beats the other and says, "Okay, now we can all grow and live in peace." No, that's the end of the world. Because part of that process is going to be the collapse of the economies, and part of that process is very likely going to be the exchange of nukes. And I don't think we can recover from that, especially from the economic aspect. Not so much from the nukes. Nukes will kill a lot of people, but not everybody. But will collapse is the global economy, and I don't think you can restart that again. That's my take on that. Okay, so a couple more issues, just some news headlines that came out this week. Yuan overtakes dollar to become most used currency in China, cross-border transactions. For the first time, we have another coin out there that is replacing the dollar in some parts of the world. And it's not the only place. We have the BRICS that is now used also for oil transactions. We have talks between Argentina and Brazil for some common currency that would help in their cross-border transactions. So, people are talking a lot lately about, creating new coins that will compete against the dollar. Will that happen next year or so? Absolutely not. I don't think it will. But it is growing, as the article said there. It's expanding, and so the question is, what are the consequences of that for the global economy?
It seems like a lot of countries aren't satisfied with the U.S. being on top anymore.
Well, no, part of the issue also is that the United States uses the dollar as a weapon.
That's the thing.
And because of that, people say, "Hey, I'm going to try to reduce my
You're abusing your power,
dependence on the dollar." And so, what the United States government is doing might backfire. We have to see how it works.
Do you foresee countries becoming more nationalistic as
Well,
as the
by
extinction
nature,
draws nearer?
if you go back to the 1920s and 30s and even earlier, people were very, very nationalistic.
Yeah.
Everything was divided by nation. Today, we're, especially the youth, right, out there, they're not so fanatic about nationalism. I don't think
But,
so.
well, I don't know about, I haven't been to all
Well,
countries.
there is to some degree, but I mean, in general, people say, look, politicians, I don't believe in my own politician, let alone my flag or my
So
national
you
anthem.
don't see nationalism coming back?
Well, not with the strength that you had in the world that led to World War I and II. I don't.
Was
I
it
don't
was
think
it a
that's
lack of information? Because since nowadays we have the internet and we see people from all over, like, oh, they're human. You can't really do the whole dehumanization thing anymore.
Yeah, what Hitler did, what Stalin did, what all these rulers did, they instilled nationalism, and they themselves grew with nationalism. So their own they nurtured or were nurtured into nationalism since they were kids. But today I think nationalism is just reserved for football games and world competitions. That's when you cheer for your home country.
It's like
but when it comes to wars, I don't think people are as fanatic, like saying, okay, you love your country, go fight for it. I love my country only when it's football.
Well, how do you think that works with Russia and Ukraine, for example? What do you think the Russian soldiers think?
Well, on the one hand, you have the Ukrainians. Where are
Because they're
no,
here.
No,
yeah.
Because you're here.
Because
okay,
here.
So we got that.
Let's get them out of the way.
The Russians, they say, hey, I had my life. I was going to get married. I have a kid, and the government is sending me to the front. And a lot of people don't like that. So I think you're going to have more Russians complaining about being sent to the front than Ukrainians who are in this have a more reason to be nationalistic. Okay, how that's going to play out, I think it's got a lot to do more with the weapons that each side gets, right, than with what the soldiers think. Okay, that's my take on that. But last point here, we have China, and they're building their own airline building company, which will be competing against Airbus and Boeing. So, the other day we had, who was it, Macron, who went over there to China to see if he could sell some more planes. And the Chinese said, well, we'll see about that, and he went there and he said, oh, look, we don't like the Americans telling us what to do. And the Chinese said, yeah, we understand, but we're not going to buy any of your airplanes. And maybe one of the reasons that Xi Jinping decided not to order or to place new orders is because maybe they're going to count on their own airplanes, especially if the United States and their allies, including France, start limiting the technology that flows to China.
But that's what I'm saying about nationalism. I don't mean like the civilian nationalism. I mean the fact that all these nations are kind of trying to limit their dependence on other countries.
Exposure.
It seems like every country is seeing the downsides of that. The fact that whoever has the power can kind of puppet everyone. So like, oh shit, we have to be self-sustaining. So everyone seems to be withdrawing into their own borders.
You can't, because
as much as they can.
International trade is so developed today compared to what was in the 30s and 40s, even up to World War II. Today, international trade is much, much bigger percentage-wise, and also importance for every economy in the world than it was before World War II. And I think that's going to have an impact.